Now it's time to hear people shout in frustration when the young teen makes a dumb decision in a horror movie. Well, now it's time to see if those same people can make the smart decisions where it counts. Hello, I'm Marable, and this is Project Horror, a point-and-click adventure where the player controls 6 different characters as they solve puzzles to escape a large house. The twist is that in those halls lies a mass killer who seeks to make the young children his prey. The player has one mission: to get the 6 children out of the locked house alive. A similar theme to an 80s slasher horror film, there is a killer in the same house with the kids, who seeks to end their lives. And while the goal seems simple, it's locked behind various puzzles and traps that the killer has set up. The kids are frightened and worried for their own safety, but thankfully, they have you at their side, ready to help them escape. The player, however, has to be aware, for even one wrong move can end the game. If any of the 6 kids run into the killer, their life is cut short. If all 6 kids die, that'll result in a game over. But if one kid makes it out alive, then the player will be victorious. The point-and-click aspect will offer various options in regards to what specific item the player is focusing on. Similar to Day of the Tentacle in regards to how they handle the mechanic with a radial menu that pops up when the player clicks on an object, and clear text that comes about when they drag an item in their inventory to an item in the level. This point-and-click aspect will be used for the player to solve the various puzzles and traps that they need to complete in order to escape the house. However, they also need to implement the 6 characters' specific abilities that they have to switch between. The 6 characters that the player can switch control of each have a unique skill to them that will help them not only solve puzzles, but also in evading and hiding from the killer. Also note how each character has a weakness about them as well, a weakness harkening back to horror movie cliches. A main point of designing will be having that each character feels useful, and none more so than the other, which will be reflected in the puzzle aspects, where a major point in designing them is that each character can solve them solo and solve them with the usage of switching multiple characters at once. This is so if the player loses all characters but one, they can still manage to beat the game, and promotes the player keeping an open mind to every puzzle. How players solve puzzles will be ultimately up to them, and leads into the decision context wanted in the design process. Speaking of the death of characters, it's time to talk about the killer is the anti-force in the game, an unbeatable foe that stalks the halls and whose only function is to chase and kill the kids. While the killer stalking is mainly randomized, if a player focuses too heavily on one character, then the killer will also begin to focus too heavily on that one character, chasing them more often than the other characters. There are 2 ways to beat the killer: running and hiding. As seen in the diagram, running is simply running until the killer just stops chasing you. Thankfully, because the killer is a slower AI character, this can be done by the player. It is the faster of the options, while hiding is the slower of the options, where you must simply hide somewhere and wait and hope that the killer didn't see you where you hid. Project Core is similar to Clock Tower and Day of the Tentacle in their point-and-click puzzle adventure aspects, Day of the Tentacle even having the character switching mechanic, and both games reflecting the 2D view envisioned for the game, while Until Dawn reflects the horror theme and the goal of keeping everyone alive. 2 risks can occur during development. First, a balancing issue, where we would want each character to feel useful, but also feature an appropriate setback that won't infuriate the player. This will mainly be a user experience test that needs to be done. The second being the puzzles. We would want numerous puzzles with amazing designs, but for the project deadline, it would be best to have 10 to 12 puzzles that have the design process we want, where each character can solve them. Project Core hopes to place the player in the same fear yet enjoyment one would get from watching a legitimate slasher film, by guiding those very same slasher kids out of the terrifying situations they've witnessed time and time again. Thanks for watching.